Welcome everyone to the Feminine Alliance podcast, your dose of fun, life advice, and experiences from two African professional women living and working in the Western world. We're your hosts, Zelda Wasau,
And Cho Women Donna.
and we're excited to have you here. So, last time we did have a conversation about coming to America, part one, but we are going to be adding a different section to the podcast that we will use from here on, and it's going to be called um, What We Are Unlearning. And I think this is very important for us to reflect every week on something that you're unlearning. So, Cholwe, what is something you are unlearning this week?
Ooh wee. I am unlearning the scarcity mindset. Now, I know there's a lot on the scarcity mindset, but for me, it's about food. Um, I I've just for a very long time been the person that is like, you need to finish your food, you need to eat everything that's on the table. Um, there are people that are hungry out there, and I do agree there are people that are hungry out there, but just this sort of feeling like the food needs to be in your body, and you have to eat it. And it's something I'm just unlearning, that when your body says I'm done, I'm done. And it's all of it takes me back to my childhood, or even when I see kids, like toddlers, when their parents are feeding them, and they're like, when they're tired or they don't want to eat anymore, or whatever they're eating, they have this like very strong no, and they would be like no, or they'll just move their head or their mouth away from the spoon, and it's basically like no, like it's a no. And I don't know where I lost that, and maybe many of us can relate, but I don't know where I lost that. Maybe stress, eating just to as comfort, but I'm taking back that power. I'm unlearning that I don't have to eat everything on my plate, that I can save it up for the next day, I can give it away, and knowing that I can get food the next day, gratefully so. So, yeah, that is what I'm unlearning, Zell.
You just reminded me of, the starving children in Africa. I'm sure that's what everyone's told. That's why everyone's like, you need to finish the food on your plate because there's starving children in Africa, which they are, but it doesn't mean you should overeat because of that.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's almost this thing of, okay, what are we actually did how are we actually helping the kids that are starving in Africa? Like, are we, for every food that we don't eat or we eat, are we putting in money in a foundation? And it's kind of like those things of like, maybe it's something to actually to actively realize that, like, psychologically, just thinking that by eating you're saving someone from hunger, it's just more on a mental side of things and not really on an action basis. So maybe it brings a new, maybe you're making me think of bringing in a new challenge to say, if we are really considering hunger in the world, then we have to actually put into action, like, maybe the money I was supposed to use to buy the extra food, I could put it in a foundation. Maybe we should be thinking that way. I don't know. But that's what, yeah. So that's that. Um
I think it's interesting because a lot of times when your parents say, "Oh, they're starving kids in Africa," which I know a lot of people in the West grew up being told, they don't really explain the principle behind why they're asking you to finish your food. Like, I think they're just trying to make sure you're not being wasteful with the food. But the way it comes out, and if you don't explain to the child, it just ends up being lost in translation, as you said, because it's like, what is the exact correlation between you finishing your food and the starving children in Africa? I think it's a principle they're trying to bring across, but it gets lost in translation because they don't explain it or expound on the thing further. So that's a good one. It's a good unlearning point.
yeah,
I
no, I yeah. How about yourself? What are you unlearning?
So for me, I'm learning a very basic principle that life doesn't always go your way, and it's okay if life doesn't always go your way.
Ciao. Yes, yes.
You know how this week, um, well, I have not been feeling my best self this week. I've been sick, and it's kind of hilarious because this is a time period in which I'm transitioning between jobs and I don't have health insurance. And I was like, why did I have to get, like, why did my tooth have to start paining on a day that I don't have health insurance? But at the same time, I just realized, life doesn't always go your way. It's fine. Just take it as it is. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And you have to just go roll with the punches because that's just one of the facts of life. You can make all these plans, but it will not always go according to plan. So it's just more so how you handle the situation that's the more important thing. It's essentially because, like, am I going to sit here and sulk and be sad or actually just mad? This happened and I was supposedly in perfect health before. Yeah, I could get mad, but I mean, instead, I think the best thing for me to do is actually think in a way like, what can I do to make the situation better? What
Mhm.
can I do to help myself out in the situation? And what can I learn from the situation?
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of situations in life in which things will not go away. And if you don't know how to adapt, it can get really tricky. So,
Mhm. Ah, very very nice. You actually making me think about, it's actually very important now that, when you're in adulthood, because growing up, like, our lives are just so structured.
right.
Like, there's already, like, that you're going to go to school, or you're going to do this thing, or you're going to come home and your parents have dinner for you. There's just, it's almost as if life is predictable for quite some time, and then when you're out of that structure and then something happens to you, I'm sure when your tooth was hurting, it was like, it's an annoying feeling, like, why is this happening?
Right.
um so but then it's like, no, but by that time, maybe if you were younger, your parents would have figured out, like, you need to go to the dentist, or they would have had some medicine already ready for you, or like, and there's all this work that you weren't doing in the background. So I get it, and I think it's just, then now as adults, we have to think for ourselves to solve the problem and not curse the problem, I guess. So I
Yeah.
like that. I like that.
I mean, because the problem is not necessarily going away on its own. I mean, sometimes it may, but a lot of times it won't, and you have to actually think about what you're going to do, as you mentioned. So, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's what I'm learning today.
Oh, good stuff.
So, this week on the podcast, we're doing Coming to America Part 2. Basically, we're going to be focusing on what happened after college, mostly our professional lives. We both also did um, master's programs and different things, and we're basically just going to be talking about how we transitioned into where we are today, and how that went for us, and just, I guess, comparing it also to how our life was back in college, because obviously there's a lot of differences from college and when you come into the real world. It's a new ball game.
A new ball game.
So
100%.
you want to start us off?
I mean, okay, so yeah, it is a different ball game. Last week when we were talking about our time in college, I know we were talking about some of the things that were like shocking to us. Um, but then getting into the real world, it's a different kind of shock. Like, it's a it's a it's a kind of shock, like you were saying, where like there is a problem and it's not going away, and it's not like, oh, I got a bad grade, I'm gonna study next time. I mean, maybe there's hopefully a next time, but the consequences are just felt in time. And so it's, yeah, so this is a little bit different, but yeah, so for me, I graduated from Miami University, as we talked about last week, and then I went on to do a master's, as you've said. I moved to Colorado to pursue a master's in environmental engineering, and I was drawn to the program because it had a humanitarian engineering component to it. So, meaning that I would be looking at how to do engineering in what is defined as developing countries.
Mhm.
And it's a little bit different from the type of engineering or the kind of engineering that's done in the Western world, because in these other countries, I guess the economic resources are limited, and we're and also the what we're working with is limited, like machinery, um, labor. So there are all these factors, these inputs that are not as readily available, and so we need to still engineer. How do we engineer to provide, in my case, clean water, and to provide sanitation? So I was very excited to be a part of that program, and went on to do that for 2 years. I was in Colorado for 2 years, and I actually got a chance to intern, and to what do you call this? Be in Rwanda to do my practicum in Rwanda, where I was helping out an NGO distribute water filters and cook stoves, and it got me into the world and just kind of see how the nonprofit sector really works. So that was a very interesting experience. But anyway, so I graduated and made the decision to continue in the for-profit world, and joined and started my first engineering job in consulting. Um, I moved to Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama. Shout out to anyone from Birmingham, Alabama. Um, Such a great experience that I had. I There was a lot going on there, in that I this is my first job, so first paycheck, um, and just having a new experience, really. Um, and just trying to learn, like, what does it mean to get up in the morning, um get in the car, go to work, uh like, you turn on the radio. I remember, I think I decided then I was going to start getting books to read, listening books, so that I could not read, rather, but listen when I'm going to work. um and then after that, so I spent a year in Colorado, and I'm sorry, in Alabama, about a year, and moved.
Why did you mention why Alabama? Because it's so. I felt like it was random when you moved at the time.
I know, it did, it felt, it was interesting. I felt like I needed to go, like, one of those things of where you don't know what you're getting yourself into, but somehow you have a feeling that you need to do it,
Hmm.
and needed to experience something totally different. And I know a lot of people ask me why Alabama, and the opportunity was there, and I said, why not Alabama? And so I just was very open and ready, and to learn, to see for myself, because obviously you hear like ideas or perceptions of places, and I didn't want to listen to that, and I said, oh, I the offer is on the table, I'll take it. So yeah, why not? So
I
that's
like that. Why not?
Why not? This is the feminine outliers, all right? So I wanted to be an outlier and I did it. Um and I really learned a lot when I was there. I mean, I learned the culture. Um had some really good barbecues there. Some really good, just really good barbecue. I made some really good friends. Um I had a really great hairstylist that fixed my hair so well. A couple of them actually. So I'm very grateful because that's where I started my hair journey, and we
Hmm.
can talk about this another podcast. So, and I also learned how to become um, healthy and to appreciate wellness. So, a lot of humble beginnings
Right.
happened in Alabama. So I'm very grateful. So yeah, so great experience, great experiences. But I also wanted to be back with family in Colorado. So I moved to Colorado to be back with, to be close to family, and then spent my got a job in Denver, and there I was working doing industrial wastewater treatment. So it was a different kind of work that I was doing. In Alabama, I was doing drinking water. And then in Colorado, I was doing industrial wastewater, which basically means I treat water that is coming from industries. So Colorado was also a growing experience for me. I mean, it was nice to be close to family, but I also then kept up with my being athletic. Like Colorado is a place. Shout out to Colorado. I mean, one of the best places to be active. I mean, I did a lot of hiking. I did a lot of biking. I It was just very outdoorsy, running as well, and of course made community around me. Um, and Yeah, and I joined a really good church that I was really happy to be a part of, and made so many great friends there. And yeah, and I just learned so much on my job, and then after that, I wanted to go back into drinking water, um, because I after that experience I realized that I really enjoyed serving people.
Hmm.
So I thought, let me get back to drinking water treatment, and I got a job with the company that I'm with right now, and moved to New Jersey. And New Jersey was very special to me because it was a chance for me to explore the East Coast culture, and boy,
Right.
was it different! It was so it was so different. Like, people on the East Coast seem to like just be straight faced. They just were like on their game, had places to go, and didn't really care to say hi, like unless they know you or they want to say hi to you. But I really did like it. I came to appreciate like how focused people on the East Coast just seemed, and I was like, okay, I will work with this attitude and I will do my best. And I just came to love it. And I started to fall in love with the beautiful city of New York.
Oh, I love New York.
Oh, New York! It's such a special place. It is one of those places that um initially I was like, why is this city the way it is? There's so many people, traffic, people, garbage. Like, can someone just, like, I don't know, shut down this whole place down, because it just is so chaotic. But then I started to love it. Like, weirdly started to love New York City. It's so ridiculous. Um and I know, as well, you have had your experience in New York City, and lived there. So I know you're going to share that.
I know, but it's funny how you're saying like you like New York, and my one memory of U when we went to New York. I don't know why I always remember this. I think this was clearly the engineer in you coming out. Was when we were I don't know which bridge the train was going over. And
Mm.
you got so excited because in your head you're like, oh my goodness, I'm just imagining what it took to build this. Like the engineering you was coming out and you're like, what did it take to build this? This is so cool that we're, on this bridge up in the air, blah, blah, blah. I was like, things like that. But you just
Yes.
the
Yes.
engineering of this bridge and everything. And I was like, wow. I
There
always
is
remember that. It was just like this pure, honest excitement.
there's something about getting on the bridge and crossing over into New York. Like there's just that something like I don't know, like a feeling of possibility of like, man, this is like New York just gives that vibe of like anything, literally anything, unfortunately, good or bad, can happen. And it's just that great feeling. Like you're like, ah. So yeah, so I now remember. Yes, I was super excited. There's just the bridge just makes you feel like you're entering into the world of possibilities. So I just came to appreciate it. I came to appreciate it. And yeah, and even just with my work, I did a lot of work around removing lead pipes. As people might know, lead is not good for your health. And so I had to work with the construction crew to remove lead pipes, and so I was an inspector. And I also got a chance to interact with people within the community, in especially in northern New Jersey, and that was really fun. It was just so much fun, and got to know the people I was working with, and just even just people who are living there, and just got to know people. So I really did enjoy this my time in New Jersey. And then I got the opportunity to move to the UK, and here I am, and I'm pretty excited. I am actually doing some really exciting work, working with talented people and doing great infrastructure work out here, and doing some really good engineering work to bring drinking water. So man, it's been quite the journey. It's been quite the journey, and it's hard to wrap things into into this, like, into a short time, but it's been the journey, and I it's been worth it, I would say.
I'm glad to hear it's been worth it for you. Um, just to clarify, so you did environmental engineering in Colorado. Is water engineering under environmental engineering, or is that something separate?
Good question. Um, yes, it's water engineering is a blend of environmental engineering, because water is part of our environment, and it's also a part of what they call civil engineering.
Hmm.
So civil is basically doing engineering for society, civil, hence the word civil. So so the work I do is I take water from the environment
Hmm.
and put that water design to put that water through pipelines and into a treatment facility or into a treatment technology, and then take that water from there and bring it to people's taps. So it's a mix of environment and civil. So it is. So, and some people actually ask me, like, wait, where do you study water engineering? And you you studied under. Some universities may actually say water, but in most cases you it will be under environmental or
Mm,
under civil. So I actually officially graduated with a civil engineering degree.
got it. Okay. I was just curious. Well, that was nice to hear of your story up to now, at least giving a good summary. Um, my story after graduation, so I graduated a year after you, obviously, because you were a year ahead of me. Uh,
Yes.
and from there, my plan was to go to medical school. I did take 6 months off just to figure out what I wanted to do. And then I decided to apply to St. George's University in Grenada, School of Medicine. And I did that because my neighbor in Kenya had actually gone to St. George's University. So she told me she liked it and she encouraged me to apply to it. Because getting into American school was going to be really hard. So in my head, I was just like, why not apply to a school in the Caribbean? Partly because I also love traveling, as you know. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I got a chance to be in another country, I got a chance to live on an island, like, why not? So I applied to St. George's School of Medicine and then I got accepted. So I was part of the January class. So I spent 2 years on the island of Grenada. It was really great in the sense that it was beautiful. It's one of the least untouched Caribbean islands because it's one of the furthest down if you look at all the Caribbean islands. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it still has a lot of its natural beauty. I mean, all the islands have the natural beauty, but it's less touristy than some of the other islands. Um, so, which is ironic because it has the biggest medical school out of all the Caribbean medical schools. It's the
Interesting.
most well known, but somehow the island was like relatively like preserved and less touristy. I think it's partly because it is really close. It's really close to like South America, like Venezuela was not Venezuela. I don't know which country it is. Don't quote me on this, but it's right close to South America, like really close on the map. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so my 2 years in St. George's, they were fun, but those were my two most stressful years of my life because med school is just stressful. That those were the basic science years, and just for context, a lot of American medical schools just have a pass or fail system, and I don't think the passing grade I'm not sure what it is in the UK in the US, but it wasn't as high as it was in the islands. They purposefully made it higher for us on the island because they know that being an international medical graduate, you have to have better scores and stuff like that to get into like the American residencies and stuff like that. So they kind of made it harder for us. And then we didn't have a pass or fail. It was a grading system like A, B, C, D, E. I think like A's was 90s, B's was 80s, C's was 70s, D's 60s, and then below that, I think it's a fail.
It's a fail.
And you think that's not bad, but like medical school with all the material, you literally feel like it's a fire hose being opened up with maximum water and just being blasted on you, and you have to
Wow.
somehow drink all that water because it's so much material hitting you at once. And I think
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned last week that part of the things I kind of struggled adjusting to studying in the American system because of the whole critical thinking part. So being in medical school, that particular aspect was going to be a little bit challenging. I think it's just figuring out how to study best was a bit of a challenge initially. Luckily, the school had really good like different programs and like workshops and things like that to help you learn how to study. And that's when I realized that for me, like, there are people who just read textbooks and they can go to the class and do the exam.
Yeah.
I am not one of those people. I'm one of those people who I need to do questions to actually see if I understand the material and see how the material is presented in an exam like setting in order for me to do well. And in fact, I can actually forego the textbook and just do the questions and learn from the questions, and that worked best for me. And once I figured that out, it made my life so much easier. um,
Mm-hmm.
but it was still so stressful, like it's just trying to pass. And like some classes you barely pass, like, oh my goodness, my nemesis was physiology. I don't know why I hated physiology, but it just was my nemesis. Um,
Mm,
Undergrad was physics. In medical school, it was physiology.
mhm,
Was
I get
really
it.
it was a tough class and it was really hard. And I remember just that was the one class I wasn't sure I was going to pass, but somehow I passed it. Like I
Thank God.
passed
Thank
it.
God. We are here, people. We are here.
But that stress on the island, like I think the only thing that balanced it out is the fact that the island is so beautiful. So like if you want to study break, you can go to the dock, and the dock is by the ocean because the school itself
Wow.
was set partially on a cliff, but then it also slopes down to like a beach. So we had a little like dock there for ourselves. So if you're like really stressed out, just going to look at the sunset over the ocean or over the beach, it was so beautiful. And I really love that. And then obviously whenever you're done with exams, like so people might not know this about doctors, but doctors really party hard. Like you work hard, you play hard. That's just how it
That's
goes.
right.
Because
Mhm.
literally, like I remember we'd have sandblast per year, and basically it's just alcohol, drinks on the beach, and it's like a party, and then for all like the students, and it's a big school, and then they also have like water activities and stuff like that. People would get super drunk. I remember some girl vomited on me, and one was
Oh.
and she was apologizing. She was apologizing. Her boyfriend was apologizing so much, and I was just like, I mean, it's what it is. But I remember the bus driver was so mad. He was so mad. Now I
Mm.
have to clean this up. He was so mad. But anyways,
Mm, mm,
it's like
mm.
like that. So like those were actually fun memories to kind of help balance it out. And I also was one of those people who I really believe in just trying to be as holistic as possible. And I learned this more so on the island because on the island is when I think I told you this before, in which I would get sick a lot, but it wasn't necessarily real sickness. I discovered later on that it was actually stress induced sickness because I am
Wow.
someone who is very calm, naturally.
Yes.
So even if I'm stressed, it doesn't
Yeah.
feel as if I'm stressed. So maybe in my head, I'm telling myself, well, no, I'm fine. But no, my body really knows, no, you're not fine. And so I ended up getting sick. And like one of the things I'd get that happened to me in medical school was I had an issue with my heart rate. Like this twice, I was sitting in class and it just doubled from like 70s to like 150.
Wow.
It was like I didn't even know what was happening. I was like, why is my heart going so fast? And they checked up on me and they said I was fine. I actually left the island that semester. I didn't leave. I came to the States to get checked up by a
Mhm.
cardiologist. Then I came back because people usually do like go for the weekend, come back to the States for the weekend. You can do that because you have breaks in between. I
Mhm.
did that, and they were like, and I remember my doctor. She was so funny. She's like, Zelda, I've looked up everything, and she's like, you're fine. She's like, I'm pretty sure this is stress.
Mm.
I had no idea that stress could do that to you, and that's when I realized because stress physically manifested itself. For me, I have to physically have a way of out, kind of having a physical
Mhm.
outlet. So if it's
Right.
exercising more, swimming more, doing something like that. That's the only way to combat it. Obviously, trying to be mindful of my stress. Because, yes, even though I love the ocean and it's so peaceful, clearly I needed more than.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I just remember on the island. Like, that was like the one part I was just like, and I used to have all these other weird things that would happen. And in my head, I'm just like, when did this start? Like, why is my body reacting like this? And it's funny because when I left the island and I started my 2 years afterwards, I never had these issues. Like it was mind blowing. Like,
Wow. Wow.
like my doctor was like, she was correct to the point. She was like, "This is stress." So yes, that was my med.
So, would you say that it was just the initial shock of starting to study medicine?
I don't think it's the shock. I don't think it's the initial shock. I think it's more so just trying to survive medical school because the
Wow.
school makes it hard on its own to like pass it. Like they want to make sure by the time you leave, you actually do really well. Like they'll have to make so they kind of weed people out. So
Yes.
I set it out like our class, like literally. I know it's I love I love USGU, but because I'm not gonna lie, they had amazing opportunities for me. But you literally might start with like a class of 1,000 and might end with a class of 700, 600 at the end of the 2 years when you're leaving the island, because people get like kind of weaved out, like they
Yeah.
kind of just try to see who's going to make it. And it's not like they're doing it on purpose. It's just that it's kind of much harder. I feel like it was harder to pass medical school there compared to in the US when I talked to my friends who did medical school in the US. Because in the US, you've made it to medical school, they're going to do everything to try and keep you.
Exactly.
But over there, because we're so many and we're studying out in such big classes, I mean,
Yeah.
they're just like, no, it's only those of you who really are good who can make it out and be doctors. So a lot of people would either drop out or they'll have to repeat a class. I never had to do any of that, so I'm very grateful for that.
Amen.
But, I mean, I think the one thing that frustrated me the most on the island was my health. As and it's just like just weird things that you just can't explain. That it was just stress, and I was like amazed that stress could do that. But
Wow.
at happier times, one of the things I absolutely loved about the island, because SGU is also like, I mean, they have so many students, they have a lot of money. Is I also got to travel with SGU, and they would pay they'd pay all my expenses because I was representing the school and the country of Grenada when I'd go to these meetings and meet medical students from all around the world. And those were my funnest times. So I went to Peru and I went to Mexico. Loved it.
I
I
remember that.
loved
Yes.
it. Like, and literally that was the time which I would get a whole week off. Like it's very hard to get a whole week off of med school, but it was
Mhm.
a guarantee for those of us who are going. We can get
Mhm.
a whole week off. So shout out to IFMSA. You always have a special place in my heart because I loved it. It was so much fun going to see and meeting other medical students from all around the world. You get to travel. I don't have to worry about my expenses. They pay the ticket, they pay everything.
Mhm.
That was great, honestly. So that I had fun. I loved the island, honestly. I had a lot of fun. Some of my favorite memories is also going to the five-star resorts, and they had day passes for the students.
Oh.
So you get a day pass and just spend the day there, and it's so nice and relaxing. And
Okay. Okay.
so
Wow. That is so somebody who is they so would you have do you have any advice for somebody who is about to start their medical journey? Like it sounds like you figured out um how to study or what your study pattern is like, which is great, and then that helped you to really just be comfortable with the study material and figure out how to just get it in your head. um and that's one, but is there anything else in terms of I guess is there an opportunity to balance out your studies with just like enjoying, or is it more like you just really have to put in the work, and then after you're maybe the first 2 years after you're comfortable, you find a way to enjoy yourself?
okay, that's a good question. In my personal opinion, the ideal goal is to obviously live a well balanced life. But I think in medical school and in residency, which I'll talk about coming up, it's a very hard thing to achieve. Something usually has to give, unfortunately, because a lot of times you will not have the time. So you have to try your best to have a balance. It will not fully be balanced, but I think the most important thing is to try your best. Just don't be studying the whole entire time. What do you like to do for fun? Try and have something you like to do for fun. Like for me, going for my organization meeting, like FMSA meetings and stuff, I used to enjoy that. Going on this catamaran cruises on the ocean or just going for a walk on the beach, used to enjoy that. Things like that that actually help you out. You just can't study. Because I saw people who do that and they were like miserable. Like to be honest, I
Mm,
really did enjoy the island for the aspect of I really tried to enjoy the island. Like I was not just gonna
yeah.
hooked up in medical school, not enjoying it because that would just have made my health worse. So yes, if you can try your best to balance it, but it is not going to be fully balanced, honestly, at this point in time. So, but that's a good question. And one of the ways of balancing it, like I didn't live on campus the whole entire time. I lived on campus the first year, and then the second year I moved off campus, and that was great because I lived in a place called Lansopines, and like the house I stayed in, I initially stayed in an apartment, then I moved to a house, and the house I stayed in, I had like housemates, but it was overlooking the ocean, like and it was so beautiful. Like it's just like things like that, like it would make me happy because I just stayed in a nice place. It was overlooking the ocean, and it's just relaxing for me. So it was fun, like moving off campus, because that also gives you a little bit of like a break, and so
Mm. Okay. No, good stuff.
yeah, so that was the hardest 2 years of med school. The last 2 years of med school were the funner 2 years of med school. That's the
Ooh.
clinical
Okay.
rotations because I started my clinical rotations in the UK. Um, I was there for a good 4.5 months. I did surgery and pediatrics in the UK. I was 1 hour south of London in Margate on the beach, and and the Queen
Again.
Elizabeth, the Queen Mother's Hospital, something like that. It was a long name, but again, this is my love for traveling coming in, and I loved it because I got to see the UK medical system, and I got to travel within the UK. I went to like we travel a lot around like the southern part of the UK, which I don't think you've been to, which you need to go.
Not yet. Not yet. I'm coming.
We travel around the southern part of the UK a lot. We also went to um, York, England, and then we also went to Belgium. And this was funny because we went to Belgium on a surgery rotation. And for those of you out there who know anything about surgery rotations in the US, they're very intense. A lot of people start their day at like 5 a.m. and end their day at like 9 p.m. because, I mean, they kind of want you to stay with the same hours as the surgeons. Oh my goodness, that was not my situation. I purposefully chose surgery to do in the UK because I knew the hours are going to be different. The first month was 8 to 4. Second month it was 8 to 2. The third month it was 8 to
Hmm.
12.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
was like, this is life.
Yeah. Because you can't work on African time then in the US. No. No.
It
Wow.
was so much fun because I got away with like when I would hear my friends, my colleagues' experiences of surgery in the US, I'd be like, OMG, I got away easy, so easy. And like our attending physicians, he would tell us, yeah, no, 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 Zelda, go home and study because I want you to get an A in your surgery exam because it looks good on me. So
Very nice.
fun. And it was just like what, four of us, like American medical students. I think the last month, UK students joined us. So by that time, we had seen all the surgeries because there was just four of us for the whole entire surgery department. So we literally would just go one after the other for all the surgeries, and it was really fun. And I think the funnest thing, the Belgium trip happened because when the UK students came, one of the girls was like, "Oh, hey," she told the attending, like, "Hey, I'm going to Nigeria for a friend's wedding, so she wouldn't be here for a week." And then we realized that, wait a minute, because we were there with American mindsets, thinking that we can't, you have to be there every day. The attending physician was just like, "Yeah, that's fine," and we were like, "Wait a minute, we can actually just leave."
Ooh,
We were
yes.
like, "Belgium, here we come." We left.
Yes, yes. It does and we can probably have a podcast on this. Um just the working culture in the UK versus the US. It feels more balanced in the UK. Like there is a sort of like a balance, work-life balance. So that's that's great.
Honestly, that was really fun, and I got to just enjoy the UK, travel around. It was really, really phenomenal time. Then I came to New York, and I was in Brooklyn. I was at Brooklyn Medical Center, and I loved it too. Like I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed the people I was working with. It was a great experience. And living in New York, it's New York. Like I was never bored. There's always something to do. I enjoyed it. There's good food, good
Yes.
company, good vibes. It was such a fun 2 years. It was like an expensive 2 years because my apartment was expensive, and certain things are expensive in New York, but it was so worth it. Like I enjoyed it
Hmm.
a bit. And I also have to say, like being in New York, it was like Brooklyn Medical Center is very, I think, compared to a lot of other places, is a very diverse center. So I never felt like, I don't know, I never felt weird or anything because there was me and the other black like medical students. And then you also see black physicians like attending
Nice.
physicians there. So it was a very like wholesome place to learn. Um, I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that.
So just to make sure that just to clarify, and that I understand. So this is medical school. So you were on the island and then you went back to the US, um, and had this experience to go to the UK and Belgium to do your rotations,
Hmm.
right? And then had it then moved to New York, and this is still happening in the last 2 years of medical school.
Right. So in medical school, you have 2 years of basic sciences and 2 years of clinical sciences. So clinical is when now you're actually in the hospital doing your rotations in the hospital. You're not actually just in a classroom studying. You have exams after each rotation in third year, like surgery, pediatrics, internal medicine. I don't remember the others, which is kind of funny. But you haven't. But fourth year you don't have. Fourth year you do whatever electives you want to do based on what you want to apply for, what you're applying for basically in fourth year. So like fourth year of medical school is when you apply, like send your application out for residency. And so I applied that year for internal medicine and other things, family medicine. I did a lot of backups. And I ended up getting transitional year that year, which was kind of, I was kind of disappointed because I wanted to get an internal medicine position,
Hmm.
but I got a transitional year position, and that was to El Paso, Texas.
I
So
remember that.
yeah. So I ended up doing a transitional year, and then I had to apply again to get an intern, and then that's when I got an internal medicine position. But El Paso, Texas, like even though I was kind of mad that I had to do an extra year, OMG, I had fun in that place. I had fun also. Like the I think the thing is that I really enjoyed my colleagues. Like for the most part. And there's always a few out there that you don't like. Like I remember the chief residents were problematic and we had a whole issue about it. But anyways, the rest of my colleagues, I loved them. I had so much fun in El Paso. I was actually really sad when I left because you know how you have your group of friends and I was like, what is happening? Because now from El Paso, that was my 1 year in, the South. I came to New Jersey. Now, it's funny how you mentioned how, in the Northeast, people are just straight faced, don't say hi,
Yep.
things like that.
Yep.
And that's what I like. I guess being an introvert and having lived in New York City for sometimes, I just keep to my business, do my own thing, move on. I'm really friendly if you ask me for directions or something like that. It's just that I'm not the kind of person who's going to go talking to people randomly in the street. When I moved to Texas, it was kind of a culture shock and annoying to me because I was told by one of the people in the hospital, she's like, Zelda, just say hi to people and say hi to you. Like, she's like, it's rude if you don't say hi, and it's just nice to just say hi. It's, friendly southern thing because it makes you look like
Right.
mean or rude. And in my head, I'm just like, but why do I have to say hi? Like, oh, why are they saying hi
Mm,
to me? That was the first question: is why are they saying hi to me? Like,
right.
I'm not a big small talk person, but just having to adjust to people acting like that in the South, I was just like, OMG. Like, I prefer the stay in my own lane, you stay in your own lane kind of scenario. But that
Mm,
was a funny adjustment, really, because I was like, oh,
yeah.
but okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, and that's funny because isn't it interesting how when you experience, like my experience in Alabama, I made really good friends that they were so, I guess, I don't know how to say this, like pivotal in my life. Like I made good friends that I'm still friends with the friends that I made when I was in Alabama. And even though it was like, it was Birmingham, small, it wasn't as big as a city as New York,
Hmm.
but just the experiences there just touched me. And I'm just like, I still hold them dearly. And like I said, I've some of the things I do, my habits started in Alabama actually. So I can relate to that feeling of you're in this space in
Hmm.
time in Texas, and then you leave, but you're also sad to leave, and then you're going to a new place. So no, that's really cool. That's really cool. I actually was curious. It's amazing that in I think I want to say about 4 or 5 years, you have traveled and lived in different countries.
Hmm.
And yeah, and that's really amazing. Is your journey typical for a student going into medical school in the US?
No, it's not even typical for a lot of the students who came to my school, like St. George's University. Like some of them, so there's an option that some of them have to do like a year in the UK, the first year, because we have a campus in Northumbria. Um, but I think it's only the more adventurous people. It's funny because I realized when I was flying my first flight to Grenada, I was all the way from Nairobi, Kenya. And I remember in New York, when I was in the gate area to get into the flight to Grenada, it was packed. It was packed with students. And I remember the students complaining. She's like, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe I don't know how I'm going to survive a 5 hour plane ride to Grenada." In my head, I'm just like, "You've got to be kidding me." A 5 hour plane. What is a 5 hour plane ride? Like I'm literally come all the way from Nairobi. 5 hours is
Mm,
nothing. And I think that's when I realized. I mean, I kind of realized this in college, but and Americans travel a lot, but there's also a lot of Americans that don't travel a lot. I
mhm.
don't know which one is more. I'm suspecting the not traveling is more than the traveling,
Mm, mhm.
but
Mhm.
I'm not 100% sure about that. I'll have to double check, but that's my suspicion. And it was just so hilarious. I was just like, why? So a lot of them, like they'll do their 2 years in the island and they want to go home, like close to home. So if they
Mhm.
live in like Chicago, there's some hospitals we have over there that we rotate at. They try to go there. They try to go to the closest hospital that we can rotate at closest to home. Like that's what most of them wanted to do. I am just adventurous because I love to travel, so that's why I took this route. I was like, why not? It's kind of like doing this for free in a sense because I was just using my situation and making it work for me.
Exactly, exactly. And that's what I love about the stories that we're telling, because even for me, as yes, someone can say go to Alabama and take a trip, like do a road trip or do some vacation. But I think I learn better by living in the culture. Like my tourist experience is actually living in that culture and doing the thing that the local people do. Like when I'm in Rome, I do what Romans do, and that is my experience. And one of the things I've enjoyed about doing water engineering is because everyone needs water. Everyone needs to drink water until we die, literally, because we otherwise if you don't drink water, you will die. Um and so, but I like the fact that my job actually allows me to travel around, even in the US and now in the UK and wherever else I'll do more work.
Yeah.
So that's amazing because when I think of, I don't know what you think about an engineer, but when I think of a medical student or a medical doctor, I'm thinking you are like you hold your book so tightly, you have your head down in the library, and you are just thinking about the human body. Like you're not in the UK and you're not in Brooklyn eating amazing food in Brooklyn. So that's really cool, Zell, that you're sure, like I'm seeing that you can also enjoy going to
Mhm.
medical school. I'm sure it's stressful, but you can design it in your own way that helps you to build yourself up, see the world, and just live life, really.
Honestly, that's true. It's fun. It's a funny description of med students because that's the same description I have of engineers. Just you're mostly solving math problems and physics problems and stuff like that. that, that would be my picture, the picture in my head. But yeah, and yeah, I think my story is almost over. Oh yeah, so after Paso, I moved to where I am right now, and Atlantic City area, um, in South Jersey. And initially, I was kind of like a low key mad because I was like, why of all places in Jersey do I have to go to South Jersey, and why do I have to go to Atlantic City area? Like, imagine
Mm,
why? Because I remember coming here and it wasn't bad. I mean, they have the casinos and stuff in Atlantic City, but in my head, I was just like, what is there to do? um,
right.
I mean, that's still one of my pet peeves is that it's very suburbia, but I can't lie, it's very suburbia, but there's like cities within like an hour drive. Philly's within an hour drive. New York is 2 hour drive. So it's located in a good location in regards to going to big cities. Like Washington D.C. is 3 hour drive. Boston is 5 hour drive. Um, but so it's not like in the middle of nowhere. I can say that for sure. I would
Mm,
definitely not survive in the middle of nowhere because I definitely did interview in places that are in the middle of nowhere.
mm-hmm,
I was like, I can't do this. But this, so I mean, when I came here, I really did enjoy these 3 years. And part of the reason why I enjoyed these 3 years again is because I really loved and enjoyed my colleagues. It's just something about when you enjoy the people you work with that makes a huge difference. Like for the most part, of course, there's always those few people everywhere you go that you will not like working with. But for the most part, I enjoyed my colleagues and I made really good friends. I told you about like my the foodie squad, and they have been such like great support system here. They've been like my family away from home here. And it's been so much fun because like with them, I think because of them, we got to explore around. We travel randomly to random places in Philly, go to like New York, and we just randomly decide to do it. Mind you, you might be working in the ICU in the morning at 7 a.m. and you decide, yeah, no, we're gonna go to Philly and then we're gonna come back at like 2 a.m. and then I'll still show up in the ICU for my 7 a.m. shift. I'll be dying, I'll be exhausted, but I'll fight through it. And that's kind of what I was saying about the balance thing. Is that not everything? It's very hard to get that perfect balance because also in residency, our hours are crazy. Like medical school, when you're studying, it's just a lot of studying. But like now that shifts over to actual work hours, you have a lot of 12-hour shifts, which are never 12 hours, at least 13 hours, if you consider like sign out and all that stuff. And so you end up like working really hard. And it's very easy to just not want to do anything. But I feel like just going out, hanging out with like the rest of Foodie Squad, going to different places, it was fun. Like I think sleep might have been the thing that's suffered. But for me, it was the easiest thing to suffer because if I had fun, it was worth it. Like I know there's a time we went to New York after I had an overnight shift. So I had not slept. And mind you, it was a Saturday night overnight shift, which are the worst because I was on a daytime schedule. I just had a random Saturday night shift. So I woke up as per usual on Saturday morning. And so it was basically like staying up for 24 hours. And then we went to New York at 8 a.m. in the morning. So I was sleeping in the car.
mm,
It was so much fun, and a lot of times, like some of the co-residents would look at us and be like, how did you do this? How are you doing this?" And honestly, I think it's just getting your priorities right and just knowing that this is actually good for your like mental health, emotional well-being.
mm-hmm.
Did it and graduated this year in June. Now I'm officially
Woo!
attending physician, and I start work end of August. So it's like 2 months of being unemployed, which is kind of fun. You know, it's fun but stressful. I need to enjoy this time when I'm not working because I have to study for my board exams. Um,
Mhm.
but now I'm here, and it's so weird to actually have made it this far. It's actually very weird because when I think about it, the beginning, starting from like 2010 when I think when I started college, You know how
Mm-hmm.
you like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go to medical school, but in my head, I'm just like, really, will it happen? Like, that's like 10 years in the making.
Mm.
Here and I've done it and I'm done. It's very shocking.
Oh wow. Wow. Yes, it's been 10 years. I'm just so excited for you. Congratulations, Dr. Zell.
Thank you.
Um it's so exciting because I do remember the conversations we had, and interestingly enough, we did keep up with each other throughout the time. Like when you were in New Mexico, I believe I was in no, sorry, when you were in Texas, I was in Colorado. And
Mm.
and then eventually, interestingly enough, our stories converged when I moved to New Jersey,
Right.
and and then you came to New Jersey, and it's like, man, isn't that beautiful? So it's yes, it's been quite a lot. And the one question I have for you is, would you do this over again? This whole medical experience, like walking us through this journey.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think you should ask me this question again in the next 6 months because my answer might be different.
Okay.
But for now, I don't know.
Mm,
Again, I think the reason why I'm saying that is just medical school was just so stressful. I made the most out of it and I had so much fun and I had amazing life experiences, right? But in my head,
mhm,
I'm like, it just takes so much out of you, takes so much sacrifice to self because you really are having to help other people, care for other people. To be honest, I think this is coming from a standpoint of someone who's jaded. That's why I'm saying
mhm,
after 6 months when I actually started working as an attending and earning attending money, then maybe my answer will be like, yeah, I'll do it again because it's worth it. But
mm.
I'm not saying I wouldn't do it again. I just don't know. Like I do enjoy being with my patients. I do enjoy treating them. But I think I've just been so used to pouring out into other people's lives that now I'm just like, pause. Now it's time for me to pour back into.
Pour into your own life. Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
I think I made the most out of it. I think also part of the thing is that I do have some med school loans, and I'm just like, oh, I have to think about paying those off, and then part of me is like people always say if you want to make money, you should not go to medicine. In my head, I'm
Mm.
like, maybe I should have thought about that earlier. But I don't know what else. At that point in time, I don't know what else I would have done. But if you ask me what I would do if I'm right now, if I'm not a doctor, I'd tell you I'll be a travel blogger.
There
That's
we go. I mean,
what I would
we are living it in
do.
a way. We are talking about traveling a lot. So there is potential. You can still be one and still be a doctor. Um, I mean, for me, you just as I hear your story, you're just making me realize like I can. There's an aspect of fun you can have even when you're doing medicine, and you don't have to be so rigid and strict, and you can still graduate and make it. um I'm just curious, what were you like in the times when it was tough? And interestingly, you also had to deal with COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, yeah, like I don't know whether you were thinking in my head like, oh my goodness, the moment is here, and I decided to become a doctor, and now there's this
Oh,
pandemic in my face. So when you were really stressed out, especially like in you got back to the US, and you I don't know if you were still as stressed, but when you were at those moments, what kept you going, really?
I think honestly, it's just it's envisioning the future.
Mm,
So like now, like I'm going to be a hospitalist, and my job is going to be like 1 week on, 1 week off. And as I told you, I love to travel, and now is the time for me to just randomly take a week during that week off, just travel, things like that. Just envisioning that I'm going to be able to do those things in the future and seeing how my life is going to be in the future is what helped me move forward. Because I was like, I have a vision, I know I want to make it, and I want it to be, I want to like see it come to fruition. So that I think is what kept me going. Because if you don't have a vision, it's so easy to just fall off. Like you have to
Right.
know where you're going, or at least have an idea where you're going. Otherwise, you're just going to be like, why am I doing this?
Mm,
That's what helped me because there's so many other people who like did not make it along the way for whatever reason. And
mm-hmm,
I was just like, okay. And then also the other thing is just trying. Like to be honest, part of me is just like it's just been trying. Like, oh, I got into medical school. That's good. I
mm-hmm,
got into residency. I just tried. I didn't know I would. That is,
mm-hmm.
and it's just like trying because if you don't try, you never know what doors are going to open for you.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
So
that's very true. No, yeah, no, no, that's actually right. It's interesting because even with engineering, I didn't necessarily know whether I was going to be an engineer. I was actually very scared because I changed my major at Miami. I don't know if I told you this, but initially I was supposed to do engineering management, which was supposed to be some engineering classes and some management classes, because in my head I was like, there is no way I could do a full engineering degree until um, I will not forget him, is Professor Hashberger, chemistry professor, who put me on the side and said, what are you doing? Like, what degree are you doing? And I said, I'm doing engineering management. And he was like, no, you're so good in chemistry. You should do chemical engineering. And I was like, oh, me, an engineer? Like, the word engineering, first of all, it's long. I don't know if we can like shorten it in some way, but it just was so intimidating to me. And just not having, I guess, role models. My dad is an engineer, but I thought it's my dad, and he's smart and like and I don't know, he's my dad. Like he probably gets it. But for me, I just did not see myself. But but he believed in me, and then my mom also was. I spoke to my mom. I called my mom, and she was like, "Yeah, you should go for it." And I was like, "I should go for it." And I think my brother as well. So I felt like I was walking in the dark. Um, and for 3 years, and I think for 3 years and a half, I I was like in this like imposter syndrome phase until I passed physical chemistry, which was supposed to be the death of anybody doing chemistry or engineering, because that class was hard. I mean, I don't know if Albert Einstein did that class. I just don't know. But it was hard. And when I passed it, there was a sense of relief, like I think I'm going to graduate as an engineer. But and so just trying, and then I think one thing I forgot along my journey is that I also needed to get licensure to become an engineer, and now I'm a professional engineer. So there's that part where you still have to do exams. So I had to do like the engineer in training exam, and then after that you have to have at least 4 years of experience under a licensed engineer, and after that then you take this long 8-hour exam, and then if you pass then you are granted your license to practice, and you can put your name down on documents and things like that, and it just opens a whole new world. Um, but I actually remember, in fact, I also experienced a bit of imposter when some of my friends had gotten their PE, and I was, which is professional engineer, and in my
mhm.
head I hadn't gotten it, and I was like, "Oh man, I'm feeling nervous about this. Like, what will I pass this exam? Like, it's 8 hours." And then something, actually it was the pandemic that just did it for me, because I was like, I'm not doing anything. I can do this. I got this. And I just started studying and just put in the effort. Um, and then when I did it, I was super excited, and yeah, and I like that. I think just giving it a try, like it
Mhm.
wasn't there was nothing magical, like no specific formula. It was just like I'm gonna just do it. I'm gonna do engineering, then I'm gonna do a master's, then I'm gonna apply for this job, and then and then eventually we're here. We are here.
That's true. Not trying is admitting failure, so you gotta try.
Ooh, that's what's up.
So, anyways, guys, we're over an hour. So, we're gonna end the podcast here. If you guys would like to, actually, we'd really love to hear what you guys are learning this week. So feel free to reach out to us. We do have an email. It is thefeminineoutliers@gmail.com. Please feel free to reach out to us. Let us know any questions, comments. What are you learning? I would love to learn that. Um, but as of now, until next time, have fun, guys. Live large and don't afraid to be an outlier. Bye, guys.
Bye.